Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Gareth Gore, writer, editor, based in London, author of Opus, The Cult of Dark Money, Human Trafficking, and Right-Wing Conspiracy Inside the Catholic Church. Particularly relevant because of who our vice president may be within the next week, 2 months.
God.
We'll talk about it later. Also on the program, swamped by his own racist jokey rally, Trump is in Allentown tonight, which is coincidentally 27% Puerto Rican. He's also giving a press conference right now. We will bring you updates. Kamala Harris to make her final arguments tonight at the Ellipse in D.C., reminding people of January 6th. The NAACP poll shows Trump's support amongst black men decreasing. Florida abortion amendment has a majority in polls, but may not make it to its 60% threshold. Fire set in Washington state drop boxes. Nevada Supreme Court says yes to mail-in ballots without postmarks if it's a function of the post office. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is hearing another independent state legislator doctrine case right now, ostensibly around the question of ballots in Philadelphia, or I should say in Pennsylvania. Steve Bannon released from prison. No word if he is re-enfranchised. Washington Post loses 200,000 subscribers, maybe more, in the wake of Jeff Bezos' endorsement squashing. Incidentally, jointhemajorityreports.com is available and completely outside of the grasp of Jeff Bezos. Meanwhile, Israel bans UNRWA, a now almost multi-decade project by them. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen.
It's Tuesday. It's not Newsday Tuesday, really.
We had Newsday Monday.
Yes. Yeah, we switched it up this week.
We switched it up a little bit this week. Forgive us, folks. Please indulge us. You know, it's that's the era that we're in right now. Let's get into this. You know, yesterday we did almost the entire episode was geared towards this rally in Madison Square Garden. And there was because there was a sense, and people were already pretty outraged by yesterday morning, but it really exploded what this comedian Hinchcliffe had delivered there. But it is wrong to just simply say this is about this one guy doing some racist jokes. It is because it fits into a narrative of a now 8-year campaign by Donald Trump to demonize, let's say, Mexicans, immigrants, in many respects, Latinos, black people, women. I mean, he launched his campaign by saying that Mexico's sending over rapists. You'll recall that he believed that there were judges who couldn't hear his cases because they were of Mexican descent. He spent a lot of time bashing people like Colin Kaepernick. And I mean, we forget about all this stuff, but half of his presidency was essentially picking out random black people to criticize. And he became a Republican rising star by saying that Barack Obama was not really American. And, all his birtherism. I mean, it fits in that narrative. And then you lay on top of that the fact that they have this America First rally at Madison Square Garden. And the last time there was ever an America First rally there, they were all in literal Nazi uniforms.
85 years later. I mean, they're obviously trying to evoke that. And then when people like us point it out, they go, oh, you soft liberals. But behind the scenes, we know that this was exactly the kind of environment that they were trying to engender at the rally.
It is now being reported that Hinchcliffe basically did his set the night before in a New York comedy club called The Stand.
To workshop it, as you would. Here it is. Trump rally comedian workshop racist Puerto Rico line at New York City Comedy Club the night before. And the best part about that is that it bombed there too. Yet
the Manhattan audience.
Yeah,
right,
the Manhattan audience.
Liberals.
And yes, a bunch of liberals there. And he said, this is what he said: the joke did not draw laughs, just a handful of awkward chuckles. Hinchcliffe told the audience that he would be performing at the Madison Square Garden rally the next day and said multiple times during his routine that he would get a better reaction tomorrow at the rally. So here's the point, though. And we should also say one other point is that it's also being reported that he, at one point during his set, wanted to make a joke about how Kamala Harris was the C word. And funny stuff. But weirdly, the campaign said, no, that's a bridge too far. So
we're going to censor you.
So they're not only being censorious, of course, they're also signing off on all the racist jokes that he did.
The Bulwark says in that article that the drafts for all of the speakers were submitted to the campaign beforehand. So all of the right-wing conservative apologists who were saying you can't hold Donald Trump to the standard, he wasn't the one who said these words. Well, his campaign was able to take one part of his routine out because they thought that would be a bridge too far. But the fact that Puerto Rico was a garbage island, they thought that was A-okay.
And here's a clip of just outside the CBS spoke to some Puerto Rican voters after Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. This is where does she do this? Do we know the location?
I think this is in Philly, if I'm not mistaken.
This is CBS News' Lilia Luciano.
Backlash to Tony Hinchcliffe's comments was quick.
That was the wrong thing to say. Why he said it, I don't know.
Superstars like Bad Bunny, J-Lo, and Ricky Martin took to social media and their hundreds of millions of followers, blasting out support for Vice President Harris. In battleground Pennsylvania, where more than half of all eligible Latino voters are Puerto Rican, Jean Marie Lugo says the joke sealed her vote for Harris.
With the comments that happened yesterday, I finally said, no, I have to be in the right side of the history.
She has lived in Philadelphia for 20 years and was leaning towards Trump until the comments.
Why did that make you decide on your vote?
I think it was not respectful. And yesterday I said they're making fun of us in our faces. Puerto Rico is not a trash can or a garbage island in the middle of the ocean. Puerto Rico is more than that.
Puerto Ricans, like most Latinos, have traditionally supported Democrats by wide margins. Former President Trump has made gains in recent years by focusing on economic issues, but at a local corner shop.
The guy made a joke of it, but you know him in it.
So you feel like what the comedian said reflects what Trump
He went through him. You see what he did last time he went down there? Throw the paper towel. Like we were like
trash.
We're trash.
If he would have been strong enough, he would have said, "Yo, it's not funny."
And while I have heard from Puerto Ricans and Latinos who dismissed it as a joke, the issue has raised a huge deal of interest. One of the top searches on Google over the last 24 hours is whether Puerto Ricans can vote for the president. The answer is yes for those of us living in the 50 states, and that's more than Puerto Ricans on the island.
Yeah, you're not even allowed to actually vote if you're in Puerto Rico. You got to actually live in the states. But there's a lot of Puerto Ricans who live in the states. Also, I mean, here's the thing why this is resonating, I think, so much amongst the Puerto Rican community and broadly speaking, is that one of the answers is when this guy's at that comedy club and he says it's going to do better tomorrow night. He knows that while with this audience here in New York City, these parochial, close-minded folks in New York City, he knows that it's going to be receptive with this particular group of people in New York City. And I think the thing that this showed people is that this isn't just, well, Donald Trump, he shoots from the hip and he says things and, he says it in an awkward way, how they've dismissed every single thing that he said for years as not being, listen to what he said, don't listen to what he says, listen to what he means and this and that. But what this comedian showed to people was that this is not just about Trump. This is about a broader movement. This is about a broader culture. We've all gathered at Madison Square Garden, the home that Nazis did in the last America First rally. And we're going to go here and we're going to do jokes. And, I've listened to the full, 12 minutes segment of it. He did make a joke about Trump, about how tough he was, about how he asked for his shoes when he got, during the assassination. And I saw somebody put up a Don Rickles thing, when
he retweeted that.
Did he? Yeah. Don Rickles when he was, with Reagan. But if you watch that, all the jokes, Rickles says one thing about, hey, there's a little black kid here. It says blah, blah, blah. And then every other joke is attacking George Shultz, who was there, who's attacking, Herbert Walker Bush, Reagan, and going around and hitting everybody there. You cannot tell me that you're sitting in the midst of Madison Square Garden, surrounded by Trump voters, all the QAnon folks, all the sort of the no-necks from Long Island, whatever it is, and you can't come up with a single joke about any of the people there. The best you can do is there's a black guy with a funny hat. We actually carved a watermelon before. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You want to say I joked about everybody? That's insane. It's insane.
Do a Giuliani joke.
Oh my God. Are you kidding? Rudy Giuliani's here. And then that writes about a freaking million punchlines after that.
Yeah. And to your point about the C word thing, I mean, the Trump campaign knew about it, and clearly the voters are making that connection. It is interesting because we know that Reagan, Trump, right? These are celebrities that became presidents for under the Republican ticket, and there is something about the base of the Republican Party being able to follow a cult of personality because Trump has these idiosyncrasies and this charismatic way where when it's laid bare without that celebrity figure saying those things, it's harder for people to excuse. We saw it with DeSantis flailing out in his campaign. We see it in the unfavorables about J.D. Vance, and in hypothetical matchups between Kamala Harris and J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris would be winning more. I mean, again, it's hypothetical. We don't know. But the point is just that the appetite for these kinds of nativist, extremely racist politics, I think when you take away Donald Trump and everything about him and the force that he's been in our culture for decades and a political force for 10 years at this point, if not more, it becomes a little bit more clear to people. And so we'll see, fingers crossed, toes crossed, all this kind of stuff. But it is encouraging to see people respond in this manner.
Here is the best part about it, though. Yesterday, I speculated that this Hinchcliffe guy, because he comes out of the whole mothership, the Joe Rogan area, that Rogan must have suggested him to the campaign. Now, remember, this isn't just a simple rally that is taking place in the summer of 2024. This is literally the height. Like, this is the
closing argument.
This is the closing argument. This is the the martini shot, whatever it is. I mean, this is it. This was supposed to be the creme de the creme, and they had this guy there because this was part of the ethos of this night. This was not an outlier. This was a encapsulation of it. And they went to Rogan. Now, Rogan pals around with people like Jared Kushner and whatnot, and probably Don Jr. And they're like, who should we get? This is what we speculated yesterday. And then this gets dug up from, I guess, over the summer. Mid-August. It's only about a month and a half ago.
Episode 21.
With Adam Ray. And this is not direct proof that this was a Joe Rogan special, but
Trump's does. Trump is looking at, like, to make a little put down, or he's just quick in that way.
Listen, he is quick in that way. Also, it would behoove him to hire a few great comics to just tour with him and just write one-liners about all these different fucking people.
I mean,
if he could remember them, I know he likes to go off his own head, but
Sure.
if he could remember a few Hinchcliffe bangers, if he hires Hinchcliffe to take him on the road. Do you know how fucking insane that would be?
Yeah, dude.
Hinchcliffe writing bangers for Trump to shit on people.
Comedy cures, and it also is like sometimes what kind of just pushes things over the top.
I couldn't have said it better. It really is one of those things that pushes things over the top. Yeah. Can you imagine? That would be insane. It really would be insane. A couple of bangers there.
The Hinchcliffe bangers. About people.
The Hinchcliffe banged, and we'll see.
They're so up their own butts.
It's really amazing. It's really amazing when you're in that hermetic bubble. You cannot tell that your farts stink.
I mean,
you're just like, wait, what? Why is everybody crinkling their nose when they come in here?
But isn't this the most beautiful kind of full circle moment for the right-wing comedy white bro space, where they've insisted that they're the only truth tellers left in society, as there's like these incredible comics who are LGBTQ, who are different races, who are coming up and saying things using more experimental on stage, all this kind of stuff. Or you can be a white guy like Stavros and have great politics and still be funny as hell. And these guys pretend like they're the only ones who can tell the truth. Well, we'll see.
To be fair, that stuff would have been a lot funnier if they hadn't censored him and allowed him to use the C word when he was talking about
I can't believe
Harris.
censorship coming from inside the house.
Really rough. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Gareth Gore, writer and editor based in London, author of Opus, The Cult of Dark Money, Human Trafficking, and Right-Wing Conspiracy Inside the Catholic Church. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. It's been now almost like 2 years that I have been taking Nutrafol. We first... They wanted us to advertise years and years ago, and at the time I was like, I don't need to take this, and Michael didn't want to take it, and then they came back, and both Emma and I at that point had stories of people that we knew that had success with Nutrafol, and I was feeling like I'm getting a little thin on this side. I have some like weird, I don't know, cowlick thing. And I figured, why not? because Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It is trusted by over 1 million people, and you could see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are physician formulated. They use 100% drug-free ingredients. The patented technology provides consistent, reliable results. Men also reported no compromise in sexual performance. That was basically it for me. I don't want to take any drugs. And this is more in some way like maintenance and, trying to maintain my hair. And it's worked for me. And the thing with Nutrafol is that many supplements will do ingredient studies, but Nutrafol clinically tests the final formulations. So all the ingredients together to ensure their efficacy. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol hair growth supplement. With the Nutrafol subscription, building hair growth routine is simple. You purchase online. You don't need a prescription. They have automated deliveries, and free shipping will keep you on track. Plus, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and Headspace membership is included because your hair is on your head. Take the first step towards achieving your hair growth goals. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men. Enter the promo code TMR. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair at Nutrafol.com/men, spelled NUTRAFOL. Nutrafol.com/men, promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube subscription. Also, sponsoring the program today, our good friends at SunsetLakeSebede.com, the folks who are bringing you live streaming of our election night coverage. It's going to be crazy. Crazy. I mean, the election coverage itself, the election is probably going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And then our coverage is going to be crazy. And then we have crazy guests. It's going to be super crazy. And it's all because of SunsetLakeSebede.com. And before then, so that you can get some rest over the course of this week and the next, and after that, they have a new gummy. It is designed to help you stay asleep through the night. Their new Good Night Gummies are great for folks who want to wake up feeling refreshed and rested without using melatonin. So you just take one of these Good Night Gummies an hour before bed and let the full spectrum Sebede and Sebe-N work their magic. I've been using this as a tincture. I'm psyched to try it out as a gummy because hour beforehand, sometimes I forget, sometimes in the way that it digests, sometimes it can hit you in a different way and stay in your system longer. The Good Night oil has been fantastic. These gummies should be awesome. I think it's the Sebe-N. Right now, you can try a jar of Good Night gummies for 50% off. You just use the code GOODNIGHT at checkout. Do not suffer another night of bad sleep. Visit SunsetLakeSebede.com. Use the code GOODNIGHT at checkout. The sale ends October 31st at midnight, so you got two days to do it. Remember, SunsetLakeSebede.com. Great. They don't use pesticides in their products. They all get it third-party tested. They use regenerative farming practices, and they are great movement partners. They have donated tens of thousands of dollars to carceral reform, Planned Parenthood, refugee resettlement, on and on. Check it out, SunsetLakeSebede.com. And we'll put a link to that sale in our podcast and YouTube subscription. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report, here with Emma Vigland, and want to welcome to the program Gareth Gore, writer and editor based in London, author of Opus, The Cult of Dark Money, Human Trafficking, and Right-Wing Conspiracy Inside the Catholic Church. Gareth, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon from London. Thanks for having me on, Sam and Emma.
So you're a financial writer. So walk us through how you sort of came on this topic. I mean, it's pretty timely because I don't know how clear it is that J.D. Vance is officially a member of Opus Dei. That's part of this. But there's a lot of indication that he's extremely sympathetic, if not a member. But start with how you came across this story.
So I've been working on this book for 5 years now. And I mean, as you say, I'm a financial journalist by background. I've been covering finance for the past 20 years. And I came to this story completely by accident. So basically a bank in Spain collapsed and I was sent to report on it. And I just started digging because so many bits of the story just didn't make any sense. And the more I dug, the more interesting this whole story got. And I initially found all kinds of financial ties to Opus Dei. And then things got even stranger. I found that not only were the financial ties to Opus Dei, but there were also all of these financial connections to these hospitality schools around the world where teenage girls had basically been recruited into a life of servitude and enslavement. So yeah, I mean, that's how it started. And I've just been kind of beavering away, trying to get to the bottom of this story for the past few years. And the book finally came out a few weeks ago.
All right. Well, let's back up for a minute. Give us how many members of Opus Dei? Well, first, let's start with what is Opus Dei? I don't think, I remember talking about Opus Dei, I want to say 15 years ago in the context of like Scalia and Robert Novak. But who is Opus Dei and how many people are there?
So I think most of your listeners, and certainly myself, I mean, people would kind of know Opus Dei through the Da Vinci Code, which of course was a highly fictionalized version of reality. But Opus Dei is a Catholic organization. It's an officially recognized part of the Catholic Church. It's been around for almost 100 years. It was started up by this Spanish priest called José María Escrivá, who went around telling everyone that he basically received a vision from God for a new organization designed for serious Catholics who wanted to take their faith a step further, but who didn't, want to go all the way of becoming priests or nuns. They wanted to be more serious Catholics. And he built this organization initially around this very kind of benign philosophy of basically you as an ordinary Catholic, you can serve God better by striving for perfection in everything you do, which, nobody can really argue with. But then, the backdrop to this was the Spain in the 1930s, a time of, the country was on the brink of civil war. The workers were rising up. They'd overthrown the monarchy. They were demanding new rights for themselves, turning their backs on the church. And Escrivá saw all of this and was horrified. And so this quite benign philosophy that he'd started out with, he began to evolve it. And Opus Dei started to become much more reactionary, much more militant, and much more political. And that's the Opus Dei that's still alive and well today. So it still presents this kind of benign facade to the world of we just want to help Catholics. But behind this facade, there's a very political kind of underbelly that's hidden from the public and from many members as well.
And is there a theocratic difference? Like, is this like, I'm not well versed in Catholicism to the extent that, is this would you call it a sect of Catholicism, or would you say that it's simply some type of brotherhood within the context of Catholicism? Like, there's no theological difference, is there?
No. So this group absolutely kind of ascribes to the teachings of the Catholic Church, but Opus Dei diverges from certainly the current Pope on a number of issues, not least things like gay marriage and support for LGBTQ issues. But I would argue that the Catholic element to Opus Dei is a front, and it's something that the organization, which I would argue the organization is more political than it is religious, but it uses Catholicism and religiosity in general as a means to kind of, I guess, convince people to drop their guard, to welcome the organization into their homes, to teach their kids at school. So yeah, I think Catholicism is just a front, and it abuses the legitimacy that it has from the Vatican in order to win recruits and in order to gain influence.
The recruits, and I mean, it's fascinating. I didn't realize how few members there are of Opus Dei. I mean, it really, and that is sort of built into it, like in terms of who they seek to recruit and what statuses and how they refer to the statuses within the organization, or I guess externally. How many people are in Opus Dei?
So globally, there are about 100,000 people in Opus Dei. In the United States, it's not a particularly big country for Opus Dei. They have about 3,000 members. But I mean, one interesting element tells you everything you kind of need to know about Opus Dei. So you would expect as a Catholic organization that, the big Opus Dei communities would be in, cities with a rich Catholic history like Boston or Chicago or New York. I guess perhaps these days Miami because of the Hispanic population. But no, the biggest community of Opus Dei members is actually in the DC area. 800 of the 3,000 American Opus Dei members live in the wider DC area. And that's because the organization, and something you're just touching on there, Sam, it's because the organization right from the beginning has targeted the elite. You can't go onto the Opus Dei website and punch in your details and say, I'm interested in joining, how do I become a member or whatever. No, they find you and they target you. And they specifically target people who are either wealthy or powerful, because the organization, being political and reactionary, what they want to do is push through change in society. And the way they do that, I mean, the founder of Opus Dei was very clear about that. The way that you change society is by recruiting people from the top of society, the people, people in politics or the judiciary, people in journalism or business who are in positions to push through the types of change that you want to have.
Well, you mentioned the judiciary, and Leonard Leo, I think, is a really important name in this regard. We've been hearing just like this weird conservative talking point that I think a majority of Americans have no idea what they're referring to lately, about how the FBI is discriminating against Catholics. And I think that, to me, at least here in the United States, it feels very pushed by these wealthy donors like Leonard Leo, who are trying to tamp down any kind of investigation into these reactionary Catholic groups. Can you talk about his role, and then also how that plays into former Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, Amy Coney Barrett right now, where his tentacles kind of are?
No, absolutely. It's a tried and tested tactic. And, Opus Dei have used this tactic for many years. And this is a favorite tactic of Leonard Leo, to basically use religion as a shield, as something, something to hide behind, when what's really going on here is a political agenda, a political program that they're pushing through, a radical political program that and so they use the Catholicism as something to hide behind. And certainly in the last few weeks since the book's come out, I've been labeled by Opus Dei itself and by many kind of trolls on Twitter as an anti-Catholic bigot. But it's kind of it's lazy, because it fails to grapple with the very serious allegations that I'm making in the book. Now, just to come back to Leonard Leo, I mean, he's a critical figure in all of this. So officially, he isn't a member of Opus Dei, but certainly the circles are very much intertwined. So he is a director on the board at this institution that's called the Catholic Information Center, which is the main Opus Dei hub in central DC. This place on 15th Street, on K Street, near 15th Street, and this place over the years, it's run by Opus Dei. There's a bunch of Opus Dei priests there who celebrate Mass, take confession, but who also give spiritual guidance to these big figures like Leonard Leo. So Leonard Leo's on the board. We've had other big conservative hitters like Bill Barr, Pat Cipollone, who have also been on the board there at the Opus Dei Center in Central Washington. And also, I mean, we do know as well that, to bring things very much up to current events and the election, Kevin Roberts, who's the president of the Heritage Foundation and the architect of Project 2025, he's a regular at the CIC. He gets his spiritual direction from the Opus Dei priests there. And so, over the past 20 years or so, this center, it's basically just a small chapel and bookshop. But it's so much more than that. It's become a real hub for a group of radical conservative Catholics and the people around them. It's almost become a kind of rallying point and a place where they go to, I guess, get spiritual justification for the radical agenda that they want to push through.
Well, let's go back in the history of the CIC and talk about John McCloskey. And then, and once we cover that, then we'll go into sort of the trafficking side of this, which is also sort of incredibly disturbing. But the names, I mean, you mentioned Bill Barr, you mentioned Cipollone, Novak, Robert Bork, Larry Kudlow, he was Opus Dei. Newt Gingrich, is he Opus Dei as well? I mean, Laura Ingraham was converted. It's unclear as if she was Opus Dei, but Pat Cipollone converted her. Ginny Thomas, Scalia. I mean, Alfred Regenery, who is the publisher, where all of like the woman who recorded, I can't remember her name now, Lucianne Goldberg, was it, that or what worked at Regenery, and she got the one to record Monica Lewinsky when Bill Clinton was taken down. You've mentioned Leonard Leo. I mean, we could keep going on, and maybe we will a little bit, but let's go back. Tell us about McCloskey, because it's stunning. You talk about 3,000 Opus Dei members in America. That's an extraordinary small amount of people, and that a third of them live in D.C., and that we can rattle off the names of a dozen people that everybody listening to the show knows, and that's impressive. And this is, and all these people are converts to Opus Dei, right? Like, is anybody born Opus Dei really at this amongst, at least in America?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can be born into an Opus Dei family, but I get it's a personal choice whether or not you as a child continue, you actually kind of sign up officially to the movement. So a number of those people that you mentioned there are members. Some of them are just what I would call affiliates, people who maybe get spiritual direction without being a full member, but are very much part of this Opus Dei orbit. But, right from the start, the target, the mission, you might say, for Opus Dei operatives in DC has been to penetrate the corridors of power, whether that's in politics or the judiciary or journalism, whatever it might be. And they've very successfully done that. So I think through the first few decades, they started out in Washington in the 1950s. And for the first few decades, they kind of had like piecemeal successes. I mean, Antonin Scalia was one, very big success. In the 1980s, he became a regular at the Opus Dei retreats that it was holding just outside of DC. And a number of kind of big kind of conservative figures were also kind of there, but it was just a small group. But what really changed things was the appointment of this priest, this very charismatic priest called Father C. John McCloskey in the late 1990s. So this guy had been, initially he'd been allocated to Princeton University. Opus Dei also targets all of the Ivy League universities because the kids there that's tomorrow's elite. So you might as well recruit them while they're young, because, when they go on to become big figures in politics or business or whatever, you've already got them. So he was first asked to do a job at Princeton University, but he really ran up against the student population there. And there were all kinds of protests, and he eventually was booted out. He was kind of too radically conservative for the student population there and for the university itself. So then he was appointed to take over the CIC in the late 90s, and he really made a huge success of it. I mean, he converted a number of really big figures. I mean, some of the people that you've just named there, others like, people like Sam Brownback, who was a senator at the time, and so many others. And he really transformed the CIC into a hub for these radically politicized senators and Congress people, lawyers, who, and it became kind of like the central node in this network. And Opus Dei was really helping to connect these people to really push forward this agenda. And he was doing so well until, and this happens many times in the church, until he was embroiled in a sexual abuse scandal in 2003. One of the regulars at the CIC accused him of having effectively groped her and sexually harassed her. When Opus Dei found out about this, they shipped him off to London so that he couldn't be served with legal papers. Meanwhile, they settled the allegations with this woman for $1 million. They paid her off $1 million. They brought him back and posted him to Silicon Valley. But he was a real critical figure in terms of, elevating Opus Dei to this kind of next level in Opus Dei. And what we see today, I think, is very much thanks to the foundations that were built by Father C. John.
I am sure that was a one-off, and he never again groped anyone or had done that before, because that's usually the way it works. It's just a one-time situation. One of the things that I remember that I find also fascinating, aside from like all of the hyper conservative trad con that we would now call it, I guess, of values, that you can hear J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, who is not Catholic, espouse, though. I mean, this is their milieu. The quote of how McCloskey converted Sam Brownback, and we should remind people, Brownback went from being a senator to governor of Kansas, where he then, at Arthur Laffer's advice, cut all the taxes. It destroyed the revenue for Kansas, so much so that the Republican-controlled legislature had to raise taxes. They wanted to get Brownback out of the picture enough that they made him ambassador to religion or faith, I think it was, under the Trump administration, literally. But the conversation between McCloskey and Brownback really gives you insight into their perspective on democracy. Like this, the hierarchy you see within the context of Catholicism is sort of, I mean, I hate to say on steroids because it's so sort of like trite, but it really is in many respects. I mean, they're only interested in the elite of society, not of society. They're targeting them, and because they know these are the people who are going to run things, but also because they feel like these are the people who should run things. And will you tell us that quote about democracy when he was talking about constituents, I think it was?
So McCloskey, I think he went over to the Senate one day, and he was having a chat with a group of senators who were either already members of Opus Dei or people who he was trying to recruit. And he went around the room and said, okay, so can you tell me how many constituents each of you have? And they went around, and one said 5 million, the other one said 8 million, another one said 12 million. And McCloskey said, no, you're all wrong. You all only have one constituent, and that's the guy upstairs. That's God. And so it's this kind of imbuing in them this attitude that they're not there to serve the people. The democratic mandate that they have is just a vehicle to which they use to push through this kind of this divine agenda, or this agenda that they're being told is coming from God.
Tell us about the so this is their sort of like, to the extent that we can sort of really see it, their aspirational sort of agenda in the context of politics, at least in the context of American politics. The history of like these hospitality schools, like what is going on here? Will you walk us through that? It's sort of nuts.
So, I mean, we were saying earlier that the Opus Dei targets the elite, and that's very much true. And the vast majority of its members are these, people in positions of power. But the organization in the 1940s, the founder of the organization, I should say, decided that they wanted to, I guess, create a more home environment in these residences where the celibate members of Opus Dei live, and in the university residences where they're trying to recruit tomorrow's elite. And so they were already spending all of this money on all of these domestic workers, these cooks, cleaners, and the rest of it. And the founder decided it would be a great idea to recruit these domestic workers, and they were all women, into the movement. So he created this new subclass. So in addition to all of the elite, all of the elite members, he decided that he would create this new subclass of membership specifically for the female domestic workers. And
what did they call it? Did they have a name?
They initially called it they were called numeri servants. But I guess in the 60s, they kind of realized that the PR on that wasn't maybe great. So they renamed it they're now called the numeri assistants. And over the years, as women around the world have, wanted better opportunities for themselves and have seen that they can do, the opportunities have opened up, and women, quite rightly want to do whatever job they want. It's become harder and harder to recruit this subclass of membership. So what Opus Dei has done is begin to set up these, what they call hospitality schools, in poor regions of the world, in places like Argentina, Nigeria, the Philippines. And what happens there, and we've seen this recently in Argentina, there was federal prosecutors have filed official accusations against Opus Dei. What they did was they would go out to extremely impoverished villages. They would go door to door knocking on the houses. They would be accompanied sometimes by an Opus Dei priest. And they would say, your daughters, there are no opportunities for them here in the little village. The schools are terrible. Why don't you send your daughters back with us? And we're talking here about girls who were 12, 13 years old. Why don't you send them back with us to the big city, and we will train them in the ways of hospitality. They can work towards a qualification. They can, it will be a path to a better life. And these girls, once they're taken away from their families, away from their friends, they're living on their own, hundreds of miles away from home. It's then when the kind of, they're bombarded, they're pressured and coerced into joining Opus Dei as these numeri servants and numeri assistants. And they're expected to work 14-hour days. Many of them work for no pay whatsoever. They aren't allowed to go out onto the street on their own, unaccompanied. And if Opus Dei decides that they're needed in another part of the world, the girls are trafficked to other parts of the world. And just a few weeks ago, in Argentina, federal prosecutors brought these formal accusations accusing Opus Dei, and specifically the four senior priests in the country, of having trafficked these teenage girls over the course of decades. Now, I know from my reporting that what was happening in Argentina wasn't a one-off. These schools are all around the world, across the Americas, in Africa, Asia, Europe, and I'm pretty sure that this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think this could be the next big scandal to hit the church. And I guess it's not a church-wide problem. This is a very specific Opus Dei problem. But I think this is going to be a huge scandal over the next few years as more of these women come forward, and as more prosecutors and authorities around the world begin to look into this issue and press charges against Opus Dei.
All right, lastly, like within the context of our government now, I mean, obviously Leonard Leo controls a $1.5 billion fund, I think it is now, where he just simply takes the interest around $200 million a year and injects it into our political system without having to touch his principal, I guess. And I think that came from some type of I can't remember which entrepreneur billionaire left him like a factory essentially, or a business that he, in trust. Leonard Leo, obviously the most influential, I think, adjacent, Opus Dei adjacent. But talk to us a little bit about J.D. Vance, to the extent that you, he's not necessarily a central focus of your reporting, but he's converted Catholic in the past 4 or 5 years, to my knowledge, and seems to have like all of the sort of the boxes checked in terms of Opus Dei. How do you have any sense of how Opus Dei adjacent he is?
So he converted in 2019. And I think, the world of Leonard Leo and Kevin Roberts has become so dominant in Republican politics over the past few years, partly because of all of this money that's sloshing around and the way that Leo uses the money to fund, various initiatives using kind of, these dark money networks and nonprofits. It's hard to trace where the money's coming from and who's behind it all. But, I think it's become I'm sure J.D. Vance converted for very, the right reasons or whatever. But
I'm not so sure.
I'll let him answer those questions himself. But it's certainly become a way to get ahead. With all of this money and with Republican politics being so influenced by this kind of cabal of ultra radical Catholics at the heart of Washington, getting ahead, converting to Catholicism has become a great career move. And over and certainly JD, I'm not aware of any direct links with Opus Dei, but he's certainly very close to Kevin Roberts, who, as we were saying before, gets his spiritual direction from the Opus Dei Center in Central Washington. J.D. Vance is also close to Peter Thiel, who, while I believe he isn't a member of Opus Dei, but he was close for many years to an Opus Dei priest out in Silicon Valley. So, and J.D. Vance is also part of the Leo network, this thing called Teneo Network, which is basically a kind of Federalist Society for everything. They want to basically reshape American culture, entertainment, business, universities, so he's operating within this orbit, and so the points of contact are various.
What? Oh, just a quick question. What about Josh Hawley? That's did Josh Hawley come across in any of your research? Because he's obviously close with Leonard Leo. There was a scandal in the sports world where the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Harrison Butker, gave this incredibly misogynistic speech at this small Catholic university that Leo has donated to. There seemed to be some connections between the Senator Hawley and this and Leonard Leo, at least.
I'm afraid his name hasn't come up in my investigation. But what I should say is that I think my book, is groundbreaking in many ways. But it just scratches the surface. There is so much more reporting and digging to be done. And what I hope my book does is inspire investigative journalists out there to really kind of start to dig deeper, because there's only so much one guy in London can do. It's there's a lot more work to be done here.
What do you think accounts for that? Because like I say, I remember 16 years ago, coming across people who were starting to write about this. I remember Robert Novak was considered, in the Scalia, and I think it was maybe like the rise of Scalia. I knew Kudlow prior to, I must have known back then. I mean, because I knew Kudlow was Opus Dei. I know at times like Roth Dathow, who writes for the New York Times, he was writing about Opus Dei a little bit. I'm not so sure how critically. Back in the day, like Rupert Murdoch supposedly has some peripheral involvement. But why do you think there has been so little writing about a group of people? I mean, Leonard Leo is, I think, by anybody who understands American politics, particularly over the past, decade, understands just how powerful he is. Where Clarence Thomas is joking that he's the third most powerful person in the country. I think the president's probably number one. I'm not sure who he says is number two. But Leonard Leo is not elected, as you know. And it's sort of fascinating that this has not come up more. What do you think accounts for that?
Well, this all comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the way that these people use religion as a shield. I think, any journalist that tries to criticize these people are accused, like me, of being anti-Catholic and of being bigots and the rest of it. And I think, I hate this phrase, but the mainstream media, I think, is terrified of being labeled as that. And so I think religion, the kind of this intersection of religion and politics has been a very tricky area to navigate for the mainstream media. I think there have been a number of great authors out there who've been writing about the rise of Christian nationalism, but it's been written about very little by the big newspapers and covered not a huge amount by the mainstream TV and stuff. And so I think people are. It's just a tricky subject to navigate. Plus, added to that, many of these subjects, Opus Dei, Leonard Leo, these are people who are famously litigious, who will also, they use their financial muscle to silence their critics and to kind of push them to kind of almost cower them into submission and not wanting to report things. I've spoken to a number of reporters who've been on the receiving end of vicious letters from these types of people. And yeah, it's, if you're a news organization that's struggling to make ends meet, the last thing you want is some huge lawsuit. So I think it's there's a number of reasons. I think partly a fear of touching religion, but also these people are quite aggressive in the way they fight back.
Gareth Gore, writer, editor based in London. The book is Opus, The Cult of Dark Money, Human Trafficking, and Right-Wing Conspiracy Inside the Catholic Church. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm. Thanks so much for your time today. Fascinating, but also, to be honest with you, a little disturbing stuff.
Thank you both for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too.
All right, folks. Skate Park CFO says, was Senator Santorum Opus Dei? I believe he was. He was pretty close, if not. I mean, he was definitely around there.
I thought J.D. Vance loved free speech, and all these guys are suing people or threatening people.
Quietly.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, he's we can only speculate, but J.D. Vance very much fits the profile of the kind of person that Gareth is outlining there. A late convert to Catholicism, in Yale Law School, it seems to be, when he made this conversion, right before he and his now wife began, or at least she began clerking for two right-wing Supreme Court justices. And she also was a registered Democrat right up to that point as well. I mean, he is very opportunistic. But if you look at, let's see, I mean, I'm just guessing off the top of my head, the list of law schools attended by the Supreme Court justices. Neil Gorsuch, where did these guys go? Oh, these are Harvard Law School. Yale is Alito, Kavanaugh, Sotomayor, and Clarence Thomas. Yep. Yale Law School is kind of a factory for some of these judicial fascists.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
A lot of recruiting from different type of organizations going on there. I'll just remind, there's a piece from Mother Jones, Martin A. Lee, 1983 issue. There Will Be Done goes into Opus Dei's role in recruiting sort of elite and upper class members of South American, Central American countries for intelligence purposes.
Or do they go get trained at that time at the School of the Americas? Is that what it was?
A lot of CIA overlap and basically countering liberation theology. So
yeah, if you ever want to go down a wormhole, folks, School of the Americas too. It's a fun thing. They've since closed it, but it was basically like our factory in training people for future coups in Central and Latin America.
Or just infiltrating stuff.
I would be. It does say on Vance's Wikipedia page that his conversion to Catholicism was influenced by Peter Thiel. So that seems pretty straight up. And I also would be curious if any of these Yale secret societies, they're pretty infamous, like Skull and Bones, and I'm forgetting the rest of them, have any kind of pipeline.
Skull and Bones,
to Opus Dei.
I would doubt would be Catholic at that point, but Opus Dei.
Intelligence, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few Yale secret societies, I think, right? Like, which one was George W. Bush a part of? I don't know.
I remember one called the Whippin' Poofs, I think, but I don't remember if that was Yale or
No,
I think that's the music.
Yeah, that's not a secret society. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my
That's-
fault.
I think Barbershop Quartet.
Sorry,
Yeah.
not as
It's a
literate.
singing group. We get it. You're a theater kid, Bradley.
Sorry,
not as literate in my secret society is my fault.
I'm on a pinch nest trail of this secret group, and it turns out to be a barbershop.
It turns out to be a pentatonics.
They're harmonizing.
A pentatonics analog.
Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajority.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half, and you can IM the show. You can pick up the app. It's free for everybody, and it works for everybody. But if you want to IM, you got to be a member. You sign in on the app, and you can IM the program. Also, justcoffee.coop. We're going to be serving some Just Coffee at the election show or event. That's what I'm calling it now. The event.
We got to stay up. We got to stay up.
The
for those
hang.
results.
The hang. Exactly. So check it out. Justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Get 10% off. Emma.
On ESPN yesterday, we talked a little bit about the World Series, but we also went through week 8 in the NFL where there were no buys. So it was a pretty fun week. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Yep. Left Reckoning tonight. Austin Allman on talking about Dan Osborne, talking about some election stuff. Check that out. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. And follow us on Twitch, folks.
Quick break. Fun half. Is the election
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay.